So, good afternoon, folks. We are here with Jeff and Johnny. How are you gentlemen doing this afternoon?
Okay.
Doing well, thank you.
All right, glad to hear it. So, um, you have some information for us in regards to the Polish. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, a few weeks ago there was a sabotage on the Lublin-Warsaw train line in Poland. Now, this is the line that we use to, one of the key lines that we use to supply Ukraine to send arms shipments and personnel over that are doing like diplomatic visits and things like that. They'll go that way. They'll take part of that line. Now, the interesting thing is that when this sabotage happened, when the rail lines were taken out, they took a number of people into custody, except for the actual person that organized it. That person and their accomplice were said to have gotten away to Belarus. Well, the Prime Minister of Poland, Mr. Donald Tusk, said that he's demanding that the Belarusians release them immediately. They want them extradited back to Poland. Well, I'll get back to that in a second. The accomplices that they arrested 5 accomplices that were involved with this whole operation. And at the time of their arrest, Polish intelligence services, their internal security people, and the federal prosecutor's office had them all charged. And within, I think, within the circle of 5 of them, they had around 46 separate Russian passports, and not one of them had any residency permits at all. So they weren't even permitted to live there. But yet they had all these passports, no positive identification. So it goes before a court just yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. Or day before yesterday, excuse me, I lost a day. Day before yesterday. And the judge ordered all 5 of them released. No charges, lack of evidence. The Polish federal prosecutor's office and the Polish intelligence services were absolutely livid. They filed emergency appeals to get them placed back into custody, but it was too late. They were already gone. So, Jeff, you had a comment on what that means for a court to do that. It just means that they already had, like, the fix was already in to release those people, the accomplices.
Yeah, well, I think we know from the past that the military intelligence in Poland, they found out, I think it was 2007, that it was heavily infiltrated by Russian GRU, and they caught some of them, but they didn't by any means get all of them. And the problem in Poland is the old communist structures. There was no lustration in Poland except for this ousting of the GRU agents, which was incomplete. They brought in Antoni Mazurewicz, who later became defense minister of Poland. He's been trying to, in his own way, sort of informally purify the Polish military, but it's been a struggle because the old communist system in Poland, they controlled the large corporations, they controlled the media, they controlled the school system, the various government bureaucracies, including the military. So getting that changed over was not easy because look, I got a call from a Polish media executive, a small one, and he was a believer in freedom. And he called me up. He was beside himself, and he said, "Look, the Russians got a German company to own us. They're dictating to us. We have discovered that there are tunnels running from the Russian embassy to various government ministries where their agents go from the Russian embassy freely into these ministries."
Jeff, we lost your camera, buddy.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what happened there. Anyway, the Polish media was prevented from reporting the story, and that they also found that various Polish political parties were being controlled by GRU agents operating from the Russian Defense Ministry. And so when we have a thing like this, where you're dealing with the judiciary and Polish intelligence under the Tusk government, you are probably looking at a fix. to make sure those Russian agents, sabotage agents, were not apprehended, jailed, and were allowed to go back to Russia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Well, at least they've been released. God only knows where they are now. But the two that were said to have been the masterminds of it, those escaped into Belarus. Well, one of which was, Lee, if you could go full on me. One of which, no, that's the map. There we go. One of which is this gentleman here. This I have to wait for Jeff to come back. He must have just got kicked. But this guy, his name is Alexander Kononenov, and just so happens that he is he's one of the suspects, and we didn't know his name. This is one of the supposed masterminds that escaped into to Belarus. We didn't know his name until the Polish Federal Prosecutor's Office filed an international arrest warrant demanding his arrest. Well, of course, at that point, then you have to release the names of the people that you want, you know, if it goes international like that. Well, I caught the name of it because they were keeping it from everybody before. And it turns out that this guy, well, you see, he's not a pro-Russian Ukrainian national, like they said. Isn't that what they said, Lee? It was two pro-Russian Ukrainian nationals?
Yes, they claimed it was two Ukrainians who were pro-Russian.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, this doesn't play with that. This is a Russian national, just so happens. Now, the fascinating thing about it is that, and I really need Jeff to get back here because he and I were talking about this the other day. But the fascinating thing about this is that this guy is not your typical average everyday Russian. He just so happens to come from a Far Eastern district. If we can go to the map, please. Where he is, or where he's from, rather, is all the way out here. If we can get a kind of a zoomed out view. Well, this is out in the Pacific. This is all the way out into the Sakhalin Oblast, which is out in the Pacific, just below Kamchatka. Now, the Latlan that I've posted for you, Lee, is in the chat, and that's where we're going to go.
All right, just one moment, and we will be there.
Right. Now we're going to be taking a look at zoom in there. We're going to be taking a look at the building that is on the right of that pin. So what we're going to do, no, on the other side of the road there. So literally where the pin was. So the building just to the right with the blue roof on it. That one there. So what we're going to do from here, we're going to go street view, and we're going to literally click on the street just to the right of it. And we're going to swing around. And what does this look like to you?
Police.
That is the police department. Yes, you're absolutely right. And the police in this part of Russia doubles up as an office for the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Russian Federation, of which this guy was a chief of, and this was his office.
Wow.
Yeah, wow's right. Now, it just so happens that the chief of this particular division is subordinate to the actual oblast's capital, which is, if you give me just a moment, I will get you the second location. We're going to go down and take a look at his boss's office.
Cool.
So the next Latlan is in there now.
They love Ladas.
They do, yes. And this, by the way, this is also this city we're going to go to next. This is where we were seeing a lot of those flights into Kaliningrad. I'm sure it's just a coincidence, right? Just coincidence, I'm sure. Oh, by the way, this guy's office right here that we were just looking at, the police station there, it sits on the corner of the road that it sits on is 50 years of October, meaning the revolution.
Wow.
This building here, with the red roofs and the gray roof there, the little, I'm just going to throw that out there. You know what that looks like? Anyway.
Yeah, they're not going there, but okay, yeah.
Just,
They just need to round off this end here a little bit.
They're doing this on purpose. Yeah, they're doing this on purpose. They are.
Yeah, of course.
The red portion of this, so to the south there, so across the parking lot, there's a horseshoe-shaped building right there. This is the FSB office. You can actually see it, right? It's listed right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Control FSB. Okay, yeah, that's what it is. So the building that's pinned, this is his boss's office. And you can, if you want to, you can go street view here and you can take a look at the kind of security that they have on these buildings when you go there. But Jeff, when we were doing, and I'm glad you're back, when we were doing some of this lookup on this guy, the training that some of these guys will receive, one of which was counter-sabotage training that this guy got. So if you want to carry out sabotage operations, then you want to be trained, obviously, in counter-sabotage in another country, because then you know all the ins and all the outs, and you can tie up all the loose ends and make sure there's no problems.
Well, in fact, he was actually in charge of counter-sabotage and counterterrorism in an oblast.
Yes.
And had the rank of a one-star general, I think, because the people of that position would have that rank. So we're talking about a police general.
So this is the actual person. Unfortunately, the Polish, they don't agree. They're still claiming that this is a pro-Russian Ukrainian national. So I've gone. The problem is that the warrant that they requested, the international arrest warrant, they gave the name. Right. So as I'm running the names down, do you have any idea how many people in the Russian Federation are named Alexander Kononenov? Do you have any clue?
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at people and bios and profiles from all the way out here, all the way to Novosibirsk and all the way over into Moscow, like construction workers in Moscow. Right. And I looked at academics with that name. I looked at construction people with that name. I looked at people that own small businesses with that name, people that drive trucks with that name. I mean, just people that work in the oil and gas industry with that name. None of them fit the profile for carrying out sabotage operations other than this guy. You're going to tell me this is not the guy? I don't buy it.
It's a good educated guess that this is the right guy.
Yes.
Yeah. With his background. And by the way, just to point out, and I know this from studying the Soviet system, they will take a general from the KGB or what's now the SVR or FSB, and they will move him over to the MVD, which is the Interior Ministry. And so they switch people around. They'll move them from the Interior Ministry over to the KGB side. And they'll even move people from, this is more rare, between the GRU and there when they're at the rank of general. So this guy, I mean, who knows what his career history is? He may have started out as a KGB Spetsnaz guy and then ended up getting the training in counterintelligence and counter sabotage terrorism later to complete his background.
In the U.S., we call that sheep dipping.
Yes. Yeah. And it's very, look, you had the most famous case of this, of moving people between agencies. That's the picture of the guy.
I was able to get his picture. That's the one I got from that's what I got from the Polish federal prosecutor's office.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is I've seen him before.
Have you?
Yeah,
Yes, sir, I have seen that man before.
Yeah, I've seen that face before too. Lee, where do you think you've seen that before?
I saw him on Russian television.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I've seen him before. He was interviewed on RT once.
Johnny, remember the that attack on that auditorium 2-3 years back?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir,
where they
I do.
shot everybody inside, and people
Right.
just sat there during the assassination.
Right.
And,
Well, the
and it was
shootings were
Security Bureau
fake.
that was the ones that
Yeah.
were sitting there.
Yeah, and was he one of the
Yep.
faces that we saw?
Sure
in
enough,
that?
he did look like one of those guys.
He
Because
looked
he
like
looked-
the fat guy that was pushing the woman down. That's who he
Right.
looked like.
Right.
But
yeah.
I don't know. I'll have to
Could
go.
it be the
I still
same
have all
guy?
the video. I'm gonna have to go back and look.
Yeah, go back and look at the video and see if you can place that face. Because you know what? That struck me as a face I'd seen before, and I immediately flashed back to that because we looked at that
Well-
video over and over again quite a bit.
Yeah, if he's who that possibly could be, then he would have been one of the FSB guys.
Right.
This guy here. Hang on just a second. I've got the photo right here. Would have been this guy. Where's my scene switcher? Here we go. It would have been this guy. And of course, what's his hat say? FSB. Of course, in Cyrillic, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And these are the people that arrested those supposed Tajiks, were they? Or were they Uzbeks?
Yeah, no, they were Tajiks. And
Right.
as you can see, he's wearing the same sweatshirt that he was wearing in the auditorium that night.
Right. Yeah. They all had color-coded
The
T-shirts.
blue sweatshirts. Yep.
They had the blue
that's right.
sweatshirts. Yeah, and you could tell them. You could pick them out, and they were sitting and they were looking at each other, and they were,
Yep.
and it looked like the armed attacks were fakes.
Yeah.
They were really
They were all dressed like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Blue jeans and blue shirt.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, which indicated, I mean, when you look at it over and over again, you realize this is some kind of staged event. It's not
Oh yes. Oh, absolutely.
not what it's
Yeah,
presented to be.
no,
Why they
no,
burned
it-
down that place, it's an interesting question.
Yeah, and this guy, you're going to tell me that this guy he was literally the guy that was doing the arresting the next day, a few
Yeah,
hours
now
later.
is that the
Come
same
on.
face? Is that the same
That
face
is
as our guy?
This is not the same face as our guy, but this guy I believe is Ross Vardia because he's been near Sergei Lavrov before in one of his official security details.
Ah, so he's an FSB bodyguard.
No, he's the National Guard, whatever Ross Vardia.
Roz Vardia.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but yeah, still blue sweatshirts. He's wearing he's got the same wristband on his left arm as he's sitting in the chair. You can see it. I've circled it. And then the next day, as he's arrested, there's the same wristband.
They all got the same material to wear for the event.
Yep.
So they could recognize each other.
Sure. So, and you can see them through the video. You can see them that they're talking to each other. Everybody's running out of the theater, and these guys, they're just calmly just sitting there. As everybody's piling out, the columns are going out through the stairwells and the doorways. These guys are just sitting there and they're drinking their drinks and talking to each other.
Yeah,
Yeah,
eating
of course.
popcorn. I
Yeah.
couldn't believe it. They were
Yeah,
eating popcorn
yeah,
while
they're
people
eating
were being
popcorn.
massacred.
Yeah. Yeah, it was absurd. It was absurd. But this is the terrorist attack on Russians that they used to put on their TV and scare everybody. Yeah, well, it's interesting. Well, they took out, 200 feet of track. There were 2 bombings on that rail line. One was 1 meter of track. The other was 200 feet, but the train did not derail on it. So that is usually repaired pretty quickly. But it was a major act of sabotage against a rail line used to supply Ukraine.
Yes.
Only took a short time to repair it, though. I think they had it fixed
Yeah.
in like a day.
Yeah, that fast, huh? That's pretty good.
Yeah, they have, sections of track that they can actually load onto a flat car and roll
Yeah.
it out and drop it in. And then they just
Yeah.
have to splice it in on each end. So it really doesn't take that long, especially on that commuter rail line that they have there. That's commuter and freight. So they're ready to deal with that. They've got it standing by to pick it up and set it on the car. So,
Yeah.
because you can't, main rail lines like that, you have to have the ability to repair them quickly. Otherwise, the blockage of that rail line will take days, weeks, even up to a month to get corrected if it takes days to repair it.
Yeah, I guess what you want to do is take out a bridge.
Yes, and the Ukrainians have been doing that to the Russians quite regularly now.
Of course, taking out a bridge is harder. You have to actually know what you're doing.
Yes, yes. We've been helping them
So-
with that as much as possible.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the original. The Polish prosecutor's office and the intelligence services. There's not going to be anything further out of this because everyone's gotten away. So they've released everybody. So and the Belarusians, they're not going to turn these people over.
And
the
he's
Russians
back
aren't
in
gonna turn them over.
Belarus or Russia,
Of course.
drinking vodka, going, this stupid Polish government.
Yeah. So it won't matter. The Polish Constitutional Court banned the Communist Party. I was telling you before we started, Jeff. That's good news, right? Or you would think so.
Yeah, except the people in the ruling party, who are mostly Russian agents probably, under the Tusk government, are laughing at them for being idiots, for not being in the right party. Because the guy, just like the Communist Party USA says, we're not running a candidate. Join the Democratic Party. We just need to keep a few comrades here to keep the lights on, but go join the Democratic Party.
I remember that as I was growing up, I remember family members talking about how they, because back in like was it the 60s and the 70s, they were actually, the Communist Party would actually run candidates, but they didn't have to do that anymore. Yeah, they didn't have to do that anymore. And I mean, they would say, well, because we had old school Democrats in the family and in the circle of family friends and all that stuff. I mean, they weren't like far left, crazy, radical, whatever, but people would try to tell them, the conservatives of the group would try to tell them, hey, do you understand that the communists have actually gotten into the Democrat Party? And they just wouldn't hear of it. They wouldn't hear of it at all.
Yeah, well, I was told by a communist that in 1982, I was at a meeting and he said, we're taking over the Democratic Party through its left wing. Look, they used to run Angela Davis and Gus Hall as their candidates back in the 70s and 80s. And all of a sudden, it's like the Communist Party said, no, go out and vote Democrat. We're not running a candidate anymore. So.
All right, where do we want to go now?
Has Maduro given up yet?
No, he has not given up, but yesterday Trump said that we were going to surround and attack Venezuela. So we've been tracking that. There were B-52s flying off the coast, and we flew 3 refuelers into Brazil just southeast of Venezuela yesterday, actually last night.
We were refueling in Brazil.
We're sending refuelers down there because if you look at the NOTAM that the U.S. issued over Venezuela, the vast majority of that area was over southern Venezuela.
What I noticed is that Lula da Silva has been sucking up to Trump. And Lula da Silva, of course, is really an ally of Maduro, an ally of Raul Castro. I don't know if you saw Raul Castro came out of retirement at 94 and chaired a meeting of the Cuban Defense Council. Did you see that?
They have dragged him out of the grave and put him back up.
I think he's really in control. He's just sort of in light control. I think he's reasserted control now. It's almost seamless. They're saying he's the boss of the country now. The poor, what is his name? Cortez. Diaz,
Yeah.
Melon or whatever.
He's taking a back seat. He hasn't been invited to Moscow.
No. Raul Castro is doing it, and it's kind of funny to see the old communist, the old guy that the original Cuban communist himself, sitting there at 94, the oldest communist leader in the world right now, the senior communist leader in the world, older than anybody.
He wasn't even invited to the Victory Day parade.
Well,
Or maybe he was, but he didn't go. Oh, you would have thought that he would have been like a guest of honor.
Are you sure he wasn't there?
I don't think so. I mean, we saw everybody else. We saw Lula. We saw Maduro. Everybody was there.
I think that that he is been semi-retired. I think the reality is behind the scenes he's sort of like the Pope. He's got this authority and this prestige among these other people, and I think they've dragged him out because but by the way, he looked fit, which is interesting to
Yeah.
me. He looked
you did say.
94. He was thin. He didn't really look frail. He didn't look sick at all, and he was chairing the meeting. So, and there was all their generals sitting there, and of course they were talking about, uniting with Venezuela and Nicaragua and making sure that their interests in the region were maintained. And of course, one of the targets here is the Venezuelan oil, which Cuba depends on. So this is Cuba's oil lifeline. They're not getting oil from Russia anymore. They're getting it from Venezuela. And China is too. And I think we're going to find out that the Colombian government is not a reliable ally of the United States. I think they really got flanked politically from within. The FARC has never had so much control in the country, even though FARC is technically legal now, which is a big mistake. And of course, in Brazil, I think the situation in Brazil is really interesting because Lula has been sucking up to Trump, and Trump has been buying into it. That Lula is a potentially good guy, and of course, Bolsonaro's under the bus. Bolsonaro's been dragged off to jail. He was supposed to be the Brazilian Trump. Nobody remembers him. Yeah, he took us. He when he was running for president, he got stabbed. So he's got a colostomy bag from that. He almost died from an infection of it just before they put him on trial, and now he's in prison or in jail. He was wearing some kind of a bracelet or dog collar or whatever in house arrest, but they've put him in prison. He's really a martyr for freedom in his country, and the United States government, the president, is not saying anything for him. This is disgraceful. And the president's saying, oh, Lula's a nice guy. We need to do more business with Brazil. I mean, Lula is tricking Trump. And the idea that he's going to surround Venezuela by using Brazil as an ally or in Colombia, that's preposterous. And so there's no way. He does not have, Trump may think he has Venezuela surrounded. He does not have it surrounded. And he's going to be very, very surprised when he finds out how much the Russians have there, if he doesn't already know. By the way, Lee, Johnny, I heard this or read it this week that people are starting to say that it's nothing about drugs that we're going against Venezuela, that it's believed they have intermediate range ballistic missiles and nuclear warheads, and that's the real reason we're going after Venezuela, that it's another Cuban Missile Crisis. But they won't say it publicly.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't believe that there are nuclear weapons there, but the intermediate range missiles, absolutely. Now that we have discovered the entrance in the mountain where they're actually bringing them in, that's what that large we showed you before. I'll go find it if you guys want to talk about it. Hold on, I'll go find it.
I got it.
Intermediate range ballistic missile tubes at the top of that mountain. They were hollowing out, showing that they have, there's got to be an elevator system for reloading missiles. They've got to have reloads there. Who knows, a few dozen missiles could be launched off that site. Who knows what they've got inside that mountain. This is a missile base. It's a hardened facility, and it is definitely aimed at the United States. And look, here's a reason why. Remember what President Kennedy did in the Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962. We put a quarantine on Cuba, preventing any Russian ships from delivering nuclear warheads or missiles. And they were very concerned with the operational status of the Russian intermediate range ballistic missiles in Cuba, and whether they had the nuclear warheads deployed on them, because they could wipe out Chicago, they could wipe out Washington, D.C. So here, Trump puts on a no-fly zone over Venezuela, right? No aircraft. What is that for? Is that the same thing as a quarantine? That's a quarantine by air. And do you think they're letting anything get in by sea? No, I think it's the same thing. They've quarantined. Look at that. Look at the rebar for the opening of that freaking underground mountain. That is incredible. This is not a small space underground. And rail tunnels, double track rail tunnels running inside this thing.
And what we did, that's where they're bringing the missiles in. Because when you look at the roadway going in, so they offload them up here at the airport, which is just up here. okay?
Mhm.
And they bring them in. Well, they come straight into the military base, right in through the front, and the first thing they do is turn left and go straight in. This is the entrance.
Well,
That brings them right around.
if you bring in nuclear warheads when the satellites aren't overhead, or if there's a gap, you don't expose the nuclear warheads much to air. And if you get them in that mountain, my understanding is once those nuclear weapons are deep inside that mountain, you can't tell whether they're there or not.
Right, right. Once they're underground like
Yeah.
that, you don't know.
Yeah.
So-
So this is the concern I think the administration has. I think they realize this mountain is a missile base, intermediate range
Well-
ballistic missiles that can reach Washington, D.C., and certainly
Well, it
hit a
is.
good part of the country. Yeah.
It is.
Maybe
But
hit New
we
York.
looked at it and we're like, when we first looked at it, we're like, those are missile silos. They're putting IRBMs in there. And do
Yeah.
you remember the platform? You remember the concrete platform that's just on the other side of that ridge? Do you remember that, Lee? Where they've built this concrete,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
paved concrete road right up there. They've built this massive circular platform up there that's solid concrete. So it comes right out of that mountain, right? There's an entrance that comes right out, and they can just drive right up there.
Well, they've got to
And-
place S-400s up on that mountain.
S4, S500, whatever. Yeah,
Whatever
or
they
S300s,
can,
whatever they've got.
S-300s, whatever they've got. You know, I'm not sure. There's been a rumor that they've got S-500s. I haven't seen a confirmation of it. You guys haven't seen those. Have we
No,
spotted
I haven't seen
S-400s?
anything
No.
that says that there's S500s there. The only thing I have seen is S400s, S300s, S200s, and S125s.
Well,
And I've got
S-400s
imagery
should
of
do
all of
the
that.
job. Yeah. S-400s should do the job for stopping bombers and fighters. Of course, we would have to use those 200 cruise missiles we have aimed at Venezuela to take out those air defenses.
Well, if they use the JASSMs, the JASSMs can fly right through the Russian radar. So the U.S. was able to get some Russian radar systems and take it out on the range. And what they did was they flew an aircraft straight at the radar that they could pick up with the Russian radar. They then released a JASSM from that aircraft and flew the JASSM right through the Russian radar, not rotating, fixed. And they flew the radar, flew the JASSM right through the radar, and the Russian radar never detected the JASSM because the JASSM has the radar signature of a bumblebee at 100 yards when it hits you.
That's clever. So yeah, so really it comes down to, I think, what we're looking at a Caribbean crisis like 1962, and I don't believe that Maduro is going to fly to Moscow and leave the regime, and that they're going to give it up because it's too valuable. And right now, the way Putin is operating, it's a finger in your eye if you ask them for anything. They're taking Ukraine, they're taking all of Europe, they're going to keep their missiles in in Venezuela, and they're going to take over the rest of Latin America. And the Chinese are right there with them doing even more.
And we don't even know what they've got in Nicaragua. We haven't gotten to it yet.
No, they've been building there. Yeah, we should
Yeah.
look at that because Daniel Ortega invited them in I think it was the summer of 2022 when the war in Ukraine had started. He invited the Russians in to build military infrastructure there.
Yeah.
So
So we're going to have to do Nicaragua when we get time. We just, it's just one thing after another right now.
yeah, it's huge.
so
I mean,
it's-
you need an
yeah.
intelligence agency to do this stuff.
Yeah. That's what I tell everybody. I tell Liam, I tell you both. I'm like, if we had a quarter of what these know-nothings have in these positions, if we had a quarter of that, do you realize just with that, what we could get done? Just a quarter of it, that's it. So there's that.
We still do more before 9 a.m. than most of them do all week.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. We don't have a quarter, but we still get more done. That's right. So the other thing is, Lee, were you aware of the fact that Putin made a statement the other day, just before the meeting with Witkoff and Kushner? And he said publicly, that Russia is not going to attack Europe. They have no plans to do so. But if the Europeans want war, then Moscow is ready for it today.
Yes, absolutely. I saw that. In fact, we put it on the news. Also, I just want to let you know there's a 747 from somebody said it was from Belarus. It's actually showing that it came in from, where did it come from? Algiers, landing at Caracas as we speak. Thought that was a little interesting. This is what that looks like.
Well, they haven't stopped the flights. Since Trump has put this quote no-fly zone in, the flights have not stopped. I mean, they've still got planes going in and out of there. So it's not like they're paying any mind to it.
So in other words, it's huff and puff.
Yeah.
Trump.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the actual, like these are the flights outside of Caracas right now. Where's the no-fly zone?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So yeah, where's the no-fly zone?
And I wanted, with the administration being huff and bluff and sort of incompetent, I wondered what Lee thought about this business about the allegation that Hegseth, Secretary of War Hegseth, ordered these survivors of this attacked narco boat.
He didn't order it. He didn't order it. It's already proven that he didn't order it. That was the whole story was bullshit. He never ordered it. He was not the one. He was not the one in charge of it. So
was it Halsey?
No, it wasn't Halsey. It was a local. I think it was a rear admiral that was in charge of it. That actually did it, it's already been proven that he did it. This is just another case of Democratic media or Democrat media spreading false narratives to create investigations. They want to investigate Trump. They want to investigate the Pentagon. They want to investigate Hegseth. And it's all smoke and mirrors. It never happened. The documents are there. The order of battle is there. They talk about the fog of war. The other thing is that from what I'm understanding now, they were both Hellfire missiles, and they were both fired from the same aircraft. It was a double tap, and they both had the same data stream in the laser. So the second one was already on the way before the first one hit. So they intended to hit it twice, is from what I'm understanding. That was the plan from the get-go.
Interesting.
The meeting that took place in Moscow, you covered that, Lee? Yes, I assume. And nothing was done. 5 hours inside there, and they didn't get anything accomplished.
Right, they got nothing accomplished. And look,
Kushner and Witkoff meeting with Putin. You're talking about?
Yeah. 5 hours.
5 hours.
5 hours and nothing. So the 28-point plan, quote, 28-point plan was not agreed to. The Russians didn't appreciate that. The Russians wanted, if I understand correctly, the Russians wanted all of their assets, their frozen assets back.
Of course, the Trump administration can't do that. That's something you cannot. The Americans don't control those assets, so they can't do anything about it.
Yeah, so they were probably hoping that Trump would lean on the Europeans to get them to do that.
Well, I think they knew. You know what? I don't know. This is my evaluation as a game player. You don't bother wasting your time, valuable time of a leader like Putin, asking for something you know that they can't deliver on and that the Europeans won't do. You're putting that as an excuse for why you won't take the deal, because it's looking to me like they want a wider war. They don't want a peace deal. If there's a peace deal, even if they get everything they want, it's not everything they want because they want Europe.
Yes,
they can't get Europe with this deal, so they're gonna go to war. No, they're mobilizing for war. They've already committed to that. They're not committed to peace. You can offer them Kiev on a silver platter. They won't take it. They'll make an excuse. We want our prostitutes back in New Orleans or something that the Russian mafia lost. They'll make some excuse or other.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the Latvians, they put up a thing yesterday. I told you about it just as we were finishing up. They want $800 billion from the Russians because the damage is done under Soviet occupation.
Well, they've learned from the Russians to ask for exaggerated, ridiculous things that nobody would dare ask for, knowing you're not going to get it for propaganda purposes. They're just throwing back in the Russians' face their own ideas.
Yeah. Well, the Russians decided that after hearing that, their ministry of whatever, Zakharova and company, decided they were going to tweet out a little metric, and they were going to show the GDP during the Soviet occupation and then the Latvian GDP post-Soviet occupation.
Mhm.
And they literally just flipped the graph upside down. So they showed the GDP going all the way up
Sure.
under Soviet occupation. And then after post-Soviet occupation, they showed it going all the way down.
Yeah, it's just a corrupt system that robs you blind and leaves you penniless.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Moscow. I mean, nothing's changed.
It
Well, the
was,
golden hordes,
it was
yeah.
Putin was asked today by media. This is according to Mark here in my chat. Putin was asked today by the media before flying to India what was said in the meeting, and Putin responded nothing important and insinuated that it was boring and a waste of 5 hours. All I heard was that when the meeting was over, Putin was putting up his zipper and Witkoff was wiping his chin. So,
Oh dear. Well, I don't, someone like Witkoff and Kushner representing Trump, this is not the Secretary of State. Why are they doing this? If such an important deal is to be made, where is Marco Rubio? Where is the State Department? Where are they going to get support from the United States Senate? This is very strange kind of diplomacy. It's very odd.
well, I hate to say it, but the simple fact that we've been able to prove that Trump has numerous Russian ties and that Trump has received millions and millions and millions of dollars over the years from Russian oligarchs. What we're seeing right now just, seems to support that there is Russian influence or that he has good feelings for the Russians, because we've been able to see transactions where Russian oligarchs have purchased pieces of property from Trump for millions more than what those pieces of property were worth. I mean,
This is
even
money laundering. This is
even
money
in
laundering.
Trump Tower, there was an apartment in Trump Tower that a Russian oligarch bought for millions more than what the property was worth. Just a single apartment in Trump Tower, and he's done this again and again and again and again. Even when Trump was going bankrupt, the Russians were investing heavily into his real estate and paying well above market value for pieces of property. Now, why would anybody pay 2, 3, 4 times what a piece of property is worth, especially when that piece of property is worth over $1 million? Why would you give $6 million for $1.5 million piece of property? And we see this again and again and again and again. And this has been taking place since 1984 was the first case that we found. And in 1988, we found numerous cases, and it still continues until this day. I mean, when you look at the guy who is a Russian oligarch who is an advisor to Trump, he lives in Trump Tower. His office is on the floor below Trump. He's listed on his business card as a senior Trump advisor. And there are numerous photographs of this guy with Trump. We did a dossier on Trump and the Russians. This was like over 6 months ago. And we showed photographs of this guy with Trump. And when Trump was asked about him, what did Trump say? I wouldn't know him if I saw him. Really? He's one of your senior advisors. He's lived in your property for more than 20 years, and you wouldn't know him if you saw him. That just makes absolutely no sense to me.
There's something else that Johnny and I were looking at the other day. We were looking at Witkoff's family background and, of course, Kushner's family background. Why are these the guys that are picked? And you've got something called the Belsky Partisans. It was a Jewish partisan group that ended up being absorbed into the Soviet partisan system, which is really weird. And these are Kushner's grandparents. And they ended up in a relocation camp and a displaced persons camp in Italy somehow, all the way from what became the Western Soviet Union, and then they ended up in the United States. And so if you're a member of this strictly, Stalin used to have his own partisans killed if they stopped operating, if they stopped doing what he wanted. I mean, they were, once you were a partisan, you were always a partisan, and you were serving the Soviet state. This is an interesting background in Kushner's grandparents. And it's also interesting with Witkoff's background. Johnny, you were looking at Witkoff.
Yes, his paternal grandfather was a Russian immigrant. He was a tailor, and he immigrated into the United States. Nothing is found about his grandmother. That's all been removed, and nothing has been talked about with his parents. All of his parents' information has been removed. But the fact is that his grandfather on his father's side, was from Russia. So, and it's just so happens, and then there's that, and then we were looking at all the other people that have surrounded Trump within the administration that have ties to these other networks. You look at Jack Posobiec, you look at Steve Bannon, and these people. You look at guys that have been put in the State Department like Darren Beattie. You look at these people, and look at the ties that they have. Look at the connections they have. Look
ties
at
to China, ties to people like Miles Guo, ties to Alexander Dugin in Russia. Yes.
Yep, that's right. So
I was surprised. I was surprised the other day when Steve Bannon admitted on the air that he was a socialist. I mean, I about fell out of my chair that he would admit that.
He's said before, and I think Trevor's talked about it. He said before that Bannon's did he say that he was a Leninist at one point in time?
Well, that was a long time ago. There was an article about that. He called himself a Leninist, but of course, in the context, and I followed that. He was basically saying he believed in using Lenin's tactics for the riot. But of course, Hitler was very famous for adopting Marxism and making it National Socialism.
But he said the same thing last month, that he was a Leninist and a socialist. He admitted that on the air. That's when I fell out of my chair.
Yeah, that's the thing is that if you look at Bannon's background, he's been receiving money from Miles Guo. And what is said in the Chinese diaspora community, Mr. Wang of Luda Media openly says it, Li Mengyan, they say, Miles Guo, he's a very, very high-level agent of the CCP. This is what they will say.
And one of his organizations, his front organizations, we were looking at was tied to that trailer park.
Oh yeah, he owns one of his organizations owns a trailer park right under the runway at
Whiteman Air Force Base.
Whiteman Air Force Base.
That's all. And of course, they own the children's bookstore. The warehouse,
the school supply store.
The school supply facility next to another military base. And look, this all goes back to Chinese espionage in the United States that the FBI has been going on for a decade, and they have done goose egg, nothing about it. I know of not a single. They did charge, they arrested that one Chinese dude at Sunspot in New Mexico. Was he ever convicted? Not that I'm aware of. That was a big deal, and nobody has said a word about it ever since. We know exactly what he was doing. We know people who were there and who were involved and told us all about it. We actually went to Sunspot and showed people why the FBI raided there. And that's because the Chinese were using SDR radios that were feeding data straight into the internet connection there and feeding RF from those SDRs about U.S. experiments taking place at Holloman and White Sands. That's all they were doing, was monitoring what was going on in Holloman and White Sands and sending all of that information back to China. We know that for a fact. U.S. government won't say a word about it. FBI hasn't said a word about it, but that's what was going on.
I'm actually, the thing that you showed, Lee, and I don't know if you can pull that up now, but the thing you showed on, I believe it was a Spectrum Analyzer a few weeks back about the transmissions that come off of these windmills, the Chinese windmills that goes back to China.
Yeah.
That, the way that you described that and watching those data transmissions go, that was absolutely terrifying to see that. and knowing that we do
it
nothing about
shocked
it.
me because they didn't used to do that. I've been watching this for years, and that's brand new that the Chinese are sending out data over these windmills. That's only been going on for a short period of time.
These are
'Cause
the windmill factories, the windmill
Yes,
generators
the wind
that the
farms,
Chinese
yeah.
have all over the Western U.S.
Yes, all over
Yes.
the U.S.
All over the U.S. They're using these wind farms. They even one Chinese general billionaire had a wind farm in Texas building a 10,000-foot runway, and Kyle Bass found out about it, brought it before the Texas legislature, and they shut it down. But this is what the Chinese will do when they can get it. No, so what does a Chinese wind farm need a 10,000-foot runway for, owned by a Chinese general who's a billionaire? Is that are we looking at an invasion of the United States being planned here by these? And are these wind farms forms of energy for use by Chinese invaders while our grid is shut down? What do you think,
Well,
Lee?
it could be, and it's also a communication system for them now.
Yeah. Well, what and do we know what they're communicating? Is this is all in code, right?
We have no idea what they're communicating, and I'm trying to pull it up for you now. But it's absolutely insane what we're seeing when it
And they
comes to
became
what they're
active when?
broadcasting.
When did these broadcasts become active, Lee?
I just started seeing them a little bit over a month ago.
Wow. See, we're getting closer to the big war, to the big one, World War III. We're getting really close to this. And the strategy, and I'm going to reiterate it, and I heard it from a Mandarin-speaking GRU colonel who defected to the United States, Colonel Stanislav Lunev, who was a friend of mine. And you've met him, Lee. You know who he is. He was the highest-ranking defector to ever come out of the GRU from Russia. He worked under the Soviet Union and the Russian Federation. He was there after the fall of the Soviet Union. And he said after the fall of the Soviet Union, it was all about getting together with China to set up the future invasion of the United States. They had figured out how they would divide North America between China and Russia. Russia would get Alaska and parts of Canada. China would get the lower 48 states. And other countries invited in for looting rights. And it was a stealth invasion. He said the Operation, what was it, Weserübung, the German invasion of Norway in 1940 was the model. They were going to use that, the idea of a stealth invasion. You could go right through fleets by using merchant ships that were supposedly loaded with goods for Walmart, but instead you'd have tanks and troops inside. You would be able to infiltrate troops into the country before the invasion. You would use neighboring countries like Mexico to stage equipment. Look, there's a podcaster in Mexico who drove that freeway the Mexicans built for the Chinese between Ensenada, a port the Chinese control, and San Diego. And the contractors told him that the Chinese had said, "This is our highway for invading the United States." So they're planning to
and this
come
is
here.
their communications backbone that we're looking at right here.
And this just lit up about a month ago.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Normally,
See,
it's
this is
just
very
these
alarming.
pulses right here. These pulses right here is what you normally get. And that's just to synchronize the lighting and all of the power on all of the generators. And now we're seeing streams of data coming out of these things.
When
That
they
one on the right.
activate, when they
That
activate
one right
their
there.
forces, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, when they activate their forces, they will need a way to communicate with their forces that they have smuggled into this country.
And the other crazy part about it is that, these towers are tall enough that they could have, HF antennas built into them. And so they could talk around the world. If they put a VHF antenna on the tops of these things, they could easily talk from wind farm to wind farm to wind farm across the United States. They easily do that. And with the HF antennas installed into them, they could talk around the world.
Here's a technical question, Lee. Does this kind of communication system suggest to you that they might be contemplating wiping out all the satellites?
Sure enough, and even if the thing is, if they were to know that they were going to do that, if they had a time that they were planning on using an EMP and wiping out all of the satellites, these systems, they could electronically disconnect them from their antenna at the time that the EMP would take place. So they would disconnect electronically disconnect the antenna. The systems are inside of metal boxes, so they're already protected by a Faraday cage because there's a metal box around the outside of them. And so they could set off the nuke and seconds later be right back on the air again with these things operating. And the fact that they're continuing, look, a windmill farm does not need a data stream like this. There's no windmill farm in the world that needs a data stream like this. One of my best friends, he's dead now, but one of my best friends used to build these things. He was in charge of building wind farms all over the world. That's what he did for a living. He did all of the contracting to write all of the agreements, all of the equipment, so on and so forth, and used to take me out. In fact, he was in charge of all of the contracts for all of the windmills that are out in Sweetwater, Texas, right here in Texas. And there's hundreds and hundreds of them out there. And he'd tell me all about how this was done, how that was done, take me around, show me this is the transmitter site, this is what we've got, this is the linking, that's why all the lights over here blink together over here, all the lights over there blink over there. He showed me all of this years ago when he was still alive. And so this is what I'm picking up just from the KLW World News headquarters here. These are all of the windmill sites that I'm picking up from just this one location. I'm not bringing this in from all over the world. This is just from our antenna on the roof of the studio.
This is a World War III communication system.
It's what it looks like.
See, this confirms, this is what's really disturbing, is you talk to a defector 28 years ago, when did I meet him? 98, 27 years ago. You talk to a defector, he describes this as the plan, and now you're seeing the elements of this plan being put together, and you have to say, look, they're on track. They're following this plan. They're going to attack the United States. We are the target more than Kiev is even.
I just had an argument with a Chinese guy online, and he said, you run your mouth now, wait till 2027.
Yeah, year 2027 is constantly coming up. I'm finding it everywhere is when this war is going to begin.
Lee, the one that's going on the far left, those streams that are over there. What exactly? Whenever you see a long stream like that and then it
That's
stops,
a data
you see
stream.
a break.
They're just sending out long things of data. It's
Okay.
you know, what I really want to do is I'm going to do it here. I've got to get the money to buy one, but I'm going to get a Kraken SDR. And I'm going to get that Kraken SDR, and I'm going to write down every single one of these frequencies right here. I can go right up here and get the exact carrier frequency. And I'm going to identify where every single one of these is.
And now here's the question. Can these sites, can they communicate with each other?
Absolutely. So they can do that. All they have to do is to have a receiver at the other site, and then there's nothing saying that they're not receiving information from China now through satellite
And that
or through the
that could be
internet
through any one of these.
or through, excuse me.
Are these just transmitters we're seeing, or are these receivers as well?
Well, they could be receivers. Most likely they're receivers as well. So for every single one of these is a transmitter, you're also seeing a receiver. And see, this is what they're supposed to look like. See this pulse right here?
Yeah.
This single pulse right over here, these dots. Until a month ago, that's what all of them looked like. Here, here, and here. That's a synchronization. So you can actually go out at night, okay? And if you've got an SDR like this in your rig, you can see the pulse. And every time you see a pulse like this, the lights on top of all of the wind turbines assigned to that system will all blink together. This is for synchronization. And every time a windmill receives a synchronization pulse, the light on the top of it blinks. And it shows that windmill is online, and also shows which company or group that windmill is associated with, because they all look identical. They're all, when you're out there looking at the wind turbines, you can't tell one from another. But if you go out there at night, you'll see that one flash in one pattern and the others flash in another pattern, and you can have 2, 3, 4 different patterns out there blinking at the same, they're all blinking together, but each group is blinking together. And I've seen as many as 4 different groups out there blinking. And so, I'm seeing right here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 20. I got 23 systems I'm seeing right here. So it's concerning. It is very, very concerning what we're seeing.
That's, yeah, and that's, like you just said, that's one site. Now, I just saw four of them just went offline and 4 others just kicked on.
Right.
Or 5 others just kicked on.
Right. So, it's...
And this is 24 hours a day.
Yeah. And so to think that something is not going on, why else are we seeing these data streams here? I live, outside of Dallas, and these pulses here are not, this is not conducive with anything that you would normally see over a standard radio system, especially the frequencies. So it's absolutely insane what we're seeing. And the size, now the data packets, so each one of these, normally it's just a pulse. So this is the difference. See this line right here?
Yeah.
That's the pulse. That's a packet of data.
Yeah, but that's normal.
No,
that's
the
what
pulse
you
is
see
normal. This packet of data isn't.
Yeah, that's not normal, but the pulse that you see, just
Right,
like
right. The
ones to
dash is
left.
normal, but these ones
Yeah.
that are longer, that's data. This is data. This is data. That's data. This is data. This is data. So, I want to go and, like I said, I want to get a Kraken SDR, install it on top of the Intimidator, set it for UHF, and go out and find it. I mean, I can show you where some of these are. I can actually drive to them. I know where they are. I've already done the research here.
I wonder if the solar farms do the same thing.
I don't know, but I'm going to find out. They don't need to, though, because the solar
Why
farm
is
is
it-
just that
Okay.
they're controlled through the grid. They're tied in.
Oh, I see. Okay, so these are not.
These are wind turbines, and they're just generators up on top. And so this
I
is how
see.
they're synchronizing the data. What did Kevin say?
Should we start to wind down with some Q&A?
Yeah, we can do that. We've been at this
We've been
about
in
an
here
hour
for
here, so
About an hour. Yeah. Jeff, are you back? Are you still there? Are you?
I think he's out. There he is.
Oh, no, he's there.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
Any other questions on this before
So-
we do Q&A?
Questions, folks, if you got them. Johnny, what is your X account?
Anderson 10X13. Or 10X3, I think. Yeah, 10X3.
If you would, put that into the chat and I'll post it.
I should. Yeah. Have to double check it. I don't really use it. Okay.
Yeah, questions only in the chat, please. Oop, wrong one.
There you go. Did you guys see that one of the top Russian military scientists, his SUV exploded in Moscow?
No, I did not see that.
Yeah, he wasn't in it, but they suspect it was an assassination plot.
I like the barcode.
Yeah, I just picked something. For me to do the profile completion, I had to do something.
Yeah, roger that. All right. Any other questions for myself, Jeff, or Johnny? And also, we missed the first little bit of this here on this particular broadcast. The first few minutes are recorded, but they're not on this stream. So I'm going to re-upload this broadcast on here, on our other YouTube channel, as well as on Rumble. So this will be rebroadcast on all of the platforms, reloaded. So you're going to see a premiere of this here on the other YouTube channel, as well as a podcast on Rumble. Do you think this is why Trump's grandkids are learning Mandarin? I hadn't heard that.
It's a good question.
If the plan is for China, Russia to ultimately take the U.S., would we expect things overseas to take off first, or would it take off here first? I think it'll take off overseas first, is what I think it would do. And the plan is for Russia to get Alaska and Canada, and China gets the United States. And we've already seen documentation that shows that Canada has already divided up the property in the United States. It's already been deeded out to Chinese leaders.
Yeah, you've got a lot of interesting things here in terms of timing. There's already a war in Europe, so that's already going, a hot war in Europe. I think when you talk to Russian and Chinese sources, they'll say things like, well, they would like the U.S. to surrender Japan or to break with NATO. They would like to threaten the other countries into breaking relations with the U.S. so that they could make Europe neutral at least, make Japan neutral, and just come after the United States. And that way no other country will interfere. Because they want to own the other countries. They don't want to have destruction in those countries, because they want those countries to then rebuild Russia and the damage, and they want to be able to control the economic resources of those countries after a war with the United States. So that's what I understand from the defectors and others that I've talked to. So however that plays out, if Europe is not going to play ball, if Japan's not going to play ball, they're just going to have to do it the hard way. And that might be some kind of EMP attack, knock out the satellites, destroy the power grid. Just once the Americans collapse, and everybody else is going to surrender, right?
Well, the Japanese are in serious trouble in other ways. Their shellfish industry is in some serious hurt. We were taking a look at that last night, and this is because of, they've not admitted it, but this is because they've been dumping hundreds of thousands of tons of radioactive water from Fukushima into the ocean, and it's killing all of the sea life up and down the coastline. That's a staple for Japanese diets. You're muted.
Yeah, fission nuclear power is very dirty, more dirty than a full-blown nuclear war. So people are so afraid of the radiation in a nuclear war. Fukushima's put out more radiation than a dozen nuclear wars would. People don't realize that. And Chernobyl was the same. Only Fukushima's worse. I think, wasn't there 2 nuclear reactors at Fukushima that went?
2 went. 2
right.
melted down, yeah.
And they're just pouring out radioactivity. So the poor Pacific Ocean wondered when it was going to show up in the sea life. I stopped eating Alaskan salmon some time ago. I would be careful.
All right, so somebody's asking, what about those Plantier cameras with the solar panels? Is that also a Chinese operation? What you have to understand is anything that broadcasts a signal or monitors or has a video camera in it that the Chinese produce under Chinese law, that has to provide intelligence to the Chinese military. So anytime you buy a camera from China, a cell phone from China, a DJI drone, a DJI camera, all of that is providing intelligence to the Chinese. That's just the law. You guys got anything you want to add to that?
No, other than the fact that the Chinese and the Russians, by the way, the Chinese are famous for making the cameras. The Russians will make the software side of it, for those that are unaware. And they retain the right, as manufacturers and developers of those systems, to be able to access them remotely whenever they want.
And you have massive computer systems for coordinating this information so that they can zero in on anybody of interest. So this is a big brother with a new bigness.
All right, so somebody was asking about what's concerning about the graph. And what's concerning about the graph is normally they're supposed to do this, small pulses. They're not supposed to have data streams. They're not supposed to have continuous data streams. They're not supposed to have long packets like this or short packets like this. It's supposed to be just a short dashed line for synchronization purposes. The fact that we've got continuous data streams rolling here, or long data broadcasts, or wide data broadcasts, this is wide right here and continuous. These are the concerning things. What is in this data is the question. When we're talking about frequencies that aren't supposed to be having data, but just pulses like this, it gets concerning when we start seeing data, bursts of data like this on a frequency that is only supposed to do what you're seeing right here, to all of a sudden have long data streams on that. Now, you know, some of these may be legitimate, something, a 400 megahertz trunking system or a control channel or something of that nature. But when we are seeing frequencies that are known to only be putting out data packets like this for synchronization purposes, and all of a sudden that frequency goes from putting out a data pulse like this to puking out a data stream, that's concerning. So that's why this is concerning, what we're seeing here. Yes, Jeff.
This has got to be a lot of volume of data. What kind of data would they be transmitting from the U.S. that would be that
They
large?
could be getting anything, stuff they're picking up. You know, see, the scary part about this is they could be using these as a relay. So they could have intelligence people out in an area who are picking up, you were gathering information. And then when they gather that information, they can just go somewhere near a windmill and puke that information out. And then the windmill system will pick it up and rebroadcast it to another site or back to China.
In World War II, the Russians, the Soviets, had these transmitters in places like Belgium and Holland, and that they would transmit to the Soviet embassy in London over the channel. They could reach it there. They called them the Red Orchestra, right?
Yeah, Roger.
They sounded like little pianists. They were late at night, sending these messages to London, to the Soviet embassy there. And of course, the Gestapo was with little mobile vans trying to zero in on where these broadcasts were coming from to catch them before the broadcast ended. And they had so many of these sending information. I mean, the Third Reich was like Swiss cheese, totally penetrated by the communists. And this was a major problem. What's interesting is the head of the Gestapo who was chasing them, Heinrich Gestapo Mueller, he was a Soviet agent. It comes out later after the war. So that was interesting too. So you look at this going on in the U.S., why is this not being shut down? And who is in charge of our intelligence? Tulsi Gabbard?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
All right, another question here. What's up with the North Korean kids learning Russian in class?
Yes, that's a new thing. They have to start learning Russian.
Question for Jeff. Can you explain on your recent article about the gold mean and how it relates to the alt-right?
The golden mean, that was Aristotle's notion that you avoid extremes. You go to the reasonable middle, and it's in the middle that everything works best, the middle way. And of course, with the alt-right, there's some certain extreme views that distort your view of reality, that bring you out of reality, and it's very dangerous, and you become susceptible to Russian propaganda. The Russians are clearly behind a lot of this anti-Semitism and the alt-right. They've been using it and manipulating it. So the golden mean is your way of avoiding this kind of ideological distortions.
All right, another question from Yoshi for me. Are these signals you're picking up, or are these from a web SDR? These are signals that are coming in off of the new high gain antenna here on top of the KLW World News headquarters. So I know that these are all local and that it's original signal because we're picking it up on our SDR here inside the studio. So I need to get a Kraken SDR. And so we're going to do a fundraiser for a Kraken SDR, and we're going to install that Kraken SDR on top of the Intimidator. And then once we install that on top of the Intimidator, we're going to go out and find these signals. So we're going to show you where each one of these is coming from. So that's going to be our next fundraiser. If you want to donate to that, you can do it in the chat now.
I have a question regarding these signals. Is there any way to ascertain what is being transmitted or received?
Yes, sir. I'm going to do that. As soon as I identify
Okay.
what they are, I'm going to record them, and then I'm going to run them through a spectrum analyzer, and I'm going to pull out, and I'm going to tell you not only what kind of data it is, I'm going to tell you if it's encrypted too.
Okay.
That would be interesting.
Oh, yeah, we're going to find out. Let's see. Correct. We are going to crack the data stream. Let's see. So we're going to find that out, Kim. What we're going to do is we're going to go out and find out where these signals are being broadcast from and if there's an echo to them. So what we'll do is we'll put a high gain antenna up on a mast up on top. So basically what I want to do is I want to put a SDR up on top of the mast of the Intimidator, and then have that SDR broadcast through the Wi-Fi, because I can put the SDR up on top of the mast with an antenna, and then have the SDR communicate via Wi-Fi, and have that communicate back down into the server inside the Intimidator. So we can do that. The other thing we can also do is use Yagi antennas. But the great part about it is if we put the Kraken SDR up on top of the mast, the Kraken SDR will actually give us the direction to the site. So we can go out and put the Kraken SDR up on top of the mast, and when we put it up on top of the mast, it'll communicate through a Wi-Fi down to a tablet and give us the bearing. So we'll drive down the road, put the mast up, get a reading, bring the mast down, drive down the road again, get another reading, put the mast down, drive down the road, get a third reading, and then map to where it is. We'll drive to where they think it is and then put up the mast again. And so in a matter of an hour and a half, I can track down each one of those signals. So it may take an hour per signal, so it may take a day or two to find them all, but we'll be able to do it. So thank you, Yoshi. There's $20 towards it. So anybody else wants to donate towards the Kraken, now's the time. Let's see. What else? Question, any update on the maps getting hacked? Johnny talked about this on a podcast recently. No, we have no update as to how the maps got hacked. And there's no evidence in our server to show anybody got in or anything. So we're not sure exactly how that transpired. All right, folks, anybody got any other questions? Do we know the manufacturer of the windmills? No, we do not, but we will find out. We've got cameras on the Intimidator that can look up and see. All right, if you've got questions, put them in the chat now, folks. Jeff, Johnny, did you have any closing comments?
Just looking at this this information about the wind farms. What is wrong with our government that these aren't closed down, and why are we allowing our property to be sold to an enemy country to set up bases inside of our country?
Well, I'll do you one.
Yeah.
I'll do you one better. Not that I'm disagreeing with that. I wholeheartedly agree with everything you just said. I have the same questions. I've been asking that since the first Trump administration. Why weren't we shutting them down then?
Yeah.
Or even before that. But the other thing I saw today, and I'm still working on trying to verify it, but the other thing I saw today is the administration has paused an additional sanction on the Chinese Ministry of Cyber Affairs, or whatever it is they have, because that's pending the meeting that Trump and Xi had about a new business deal.
See, this is the thing. We're always making business deals with them, and they're always infiltrating us, and nothing ever changes. No matter who we elect, we are being allowed to be infiltrated. And the Chinese, this is what Colonel Lunev told me, it's an infiltration invasion, and they continue to infiltrate. They've been infiltrating us for more than 2 decades.
And he said that it will start when they cannot get any more money out of you. And
Yeah,
so as long as these deals keep going, as long as they can continue to swindle us, then and that's why these wind farms have not been torn down. I would have every last damn bolt torn down off of these
I
things.
would have all Chinese nationals deported. We're not going to have Chinese citizens on our soil anymore. They're spies.
I'd put a ban on all Chinese communications equipment.
Yeah, that's a good point, Lee, because that's a matter. They're infiltrating us electronically by making our electronic devices, where they're putting back doors in them. This is so stupid and irresponsible. It's like we're ruled by children who don't have any sense of responsibility. And when it comes to this sort of thing should have been done a quarter of a century ago. We should have been on it. When you had the Cox Commission on Chinagate, and nothing was done. We think we have a commission, we have a congressman finding out about it, and nobody does anything. People just go, "Oh, that's interesting," but nobody does anything. And then you got Trump claiming to be a nationalist, not doing anything. No, there's something rotten in Denmark, and America's Denmark, right?
All right, and would you be so kind as to tell the people about the briefing that you're going to be giving? That Johnny and I had been working on. A lot of people have been wanting to know when that's going to take place and what you can say about it. They also want to know when they can see it, or if they can see it.
This is a private briefing in Toronto, Canada, to select people in the conservative movement in Canada. So it's not really to be publicized, but it will be covered by the Canadian press. I'm going to be giving interviews to the leading Canadian conservative newspapers, so that should be interesting. But it's not a public presentation.
All right, and let me show you what I'm talking about as far as being concerned. This is the Japanese Self-Defense Force with the Philippines and the U.S. And this is talking about how their military is going to protect itself. There's just one small problem.
I already see a problem. Yep, you got it right.
If you look at this laptop right here, it's produced by Huawei. This is a Chinese laptop, and the Japanese military is using a Chinese laptop for their battle plans. How asinine can you be? And see, because the Japanese are in cooperation with the United States, well, guess what? They're getting U.S. intel across that. That's a U.S. ship that the Japanese and the Philippines are on. And they're using a Huawei laptop.
This company, do you either of you recall that we had actually detained, or I think it was the Canadians detained, the daughter of the PLA general that owns Huawei in Canada, and we asked for her to be extradited, but the Canadians released her.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The Canadians have told me, Canadian conservatives have told me this country has been taken over by the Chinese. And they saw Trudeau, the previous prime minister, and I think the same could be said for the present prime minister in Canada. They are basically just agents of the Chinese.
Yeah, it's getting crazier by the day. Absolutely crazier by the day.
I mean, this has been coming on for years. 1997 in Canada, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and the CSIS, the Canadian CIA, did a joint study called the Sidewinder Report, which was classified much longer than it should have been because they didn't want the public to know. And the Sidewinder Report said we are being infiltrated by China through the Chinese criminal syndicates out of Hong Kong.
Triads.
The triads, and that they are using money laundering through urban real estate, sort of the way the Russians launder money through Trump's real estate ventures, to basically buy politicians, buy positions in the Canadian government, and that if we don't get our handle on this, we're going to get taken over from within by the Chinese. Immediately, the report was suppressed. It wouldn't be discussed. They wouldn't do anything about it. So it was already too late in 1997. That is 28 years ago now. And of course, now it's been declassified. And when I was in Canada, I mentioned it in the speech that I gave last year in Canada. And young college students were coming up to me saying, how can I get this report? And nobody had ever heard of it. Some of the older military guys had heard about it, military intelligence guys, people my age. But the young kids didn't. I was glad I got some of these kids to know it, but goodness knows what their professors will do to them when they come up with this report. But yes, they've infiltrated it. It used to be that if you were not a Canadian citizen, you could not own business property in Canada. Now you got all these Chinese that can come in and own business property, and they basically own the Canadian government. And I had dinner with a former member of Canada's Parliament, who the Chinese managed to unseat from her seat. And she told me, when you go back to America, tell your friends, Canada's been taken over by China.
All right, we got a couple questions. Somebody want to know what the SDR feed is on the Spectrum Analyzer. It's not a feed. That is directly from the SDR here at the KLW World News headquarters. Why are our people not telling us? They never tell us, is why they're not telling us. Kevin Timmer tells us that the United States Coast Guard runs the U.S. wind turbine database. I find that a little interesting. Yes, I do agree we have been sold out. The Chinese embassy in Trinidad has said that they want to build wind farms on the island. Find that interesting. Also, they have built wind farms all over Cuba. The Chinese have built wind farms all over Cuba.
It's interesting that they want to put them in Trinidad because we just put a whole bunch of brand new military hardware on Trinidad.
Yeah. Let's see here. There are still Marines in Trinidad, and this is for questions only, folks. Also, if you want to donate towards the Kraken receiver, now's the time to do that. We've got 70 bucks. I think a Kraken is 500 or more, so we're about a fifth of the way there. Mini routers on the China belt, or mini routes on the Chinese Belt and Road path. Yes, there are. USGS. I'm sorry. It's the USGS runs the wind, not the U.S. Coast Guard. The SDR that we use is an SDR Uno. And we have found that the SDR Uno has just as good of receive sensitivity as my ICOM 7100, of which I was furious when I found that out because I paid $1,700 for my ICOM 7100, and the SDR Uno cost me less than $200. So, but the SDR Uno is brand new, and the 7100 is 12 years old. So was 1950s McCarthy right about the commie threat? I'll leave that to Jeff and Johnny. I think so.
There's a book called Blacklisted by History. It's written by M. Stanton Evans. It's about McCarthy, and it gives the real history of Joseph McCarthy. No, he was right. They recognized back then there was massive subversion in the Roosevelt and Truman administrations. We've got the proof now from the Venona decrypts. It's a fact. When people say it was a Red Scare, no, it was a Red infiltration. McCarthy was trying to get at it. Basically to give a kind of overview of M. Stanton Evans' book on McCarthy, he shows that everything they accused McCarthy of, they did to McCarthy, right? And in fact, when McCarthy didn't want to publish the names of communists, he didn't want to make them public. He didn't want to accuse people publicly. The Senate actually made him do it, and then they blamed him for it, his enemies. So when he was censured by the Senate, then his death is kind of odd. What, he goes in for a bum knee and he dies of liver failure. So this is a very interesting subject. McCarthy was right about a lot of things. You know, nobody's perfect, right? We can't expect our heroes to be 100% perfect, but McCarthy was done an incredible injustice.
I'd like to add on to that. McCarthy, during that time, he was not the only one that was right. There was also J. Edgar Hoover at the same time that was railing about communism. And I've got two books that I would recommend to people, highly recommend to people. And I first read these around, it was almost 20 years ago now. I read these. This is the first one. This is Masters of Deceit, the story of communism in America and how to fight it. And it's just as relevant today as it was then. Jeff, you're familiar with this book, yes?
Yes.
And then the second one, the kind of the sequel to this, is The Study of Communism.
Yeah. I should point out, people always get confused. They seem to associate Senator McCarthy with the House Un-American Activities Committee. He was part of the Senate Security Committee of the United States Senate. He was a senator. The House Un-American Activities Committee was the first, though, to investigate communists. Actually, in the 1930s, they were also investigating Nazis. That was founded by Texas Democrat Martin Dies in 1938. And he was actually taken into the White House and slapped on the wrist by President Roosevelt saying, oh, investigate Nazis, but don't investigate communists. And it was later McCarthy realized there was a problem with communist subversion, and he had lunch with Martin Dies. And he said, I want to do this in the Senate. And Martin Dies gave him the lowdown. He said, they're going to come after you if you do this, and Martin Dies kind of schooled him. So Martin Dies, a Democrat, was the one that schooled McCarthy in this. And other senators, Republican senators, got interested. Look, the McCarran Act, that's Senator McCarran. There was a really strong Senate Security Committee. They passed a lot of legislation that forced, together with the House, they forced 20,000 communists out of the U.S. government. That's people that could not swear that they weren't members of the Communist Party. Okay, boom, they lose their government jobs. That was in the 1950s. By the time you get to the 1960s in the Kennedy administration, those laws get loosened up and these communists come flooding back into government. So you want to know what's gone on here. This is just a snippet of the history.
Wow, I just looked it up. The Kraken SDR is now $1,000.
There's been a lot of price hikes in a lot of hardware recently. I don't know, Lee, if you've priced out DDR5 RAM for PCs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
A few months ago, it was about $100, and I looked at it last night, and it's about $800 now.
Yeah,
so
it's all been going up.
Everything's going up quickly, tremendously. But I think it's got a lot to do with these data centers they're putting in everywhere.
Dakota wants to know, for all of us, how do we feel about the protocols of the Elders of Zion? I don't have anything on that, so I have nothing to say.
I can't speak on that.
So say the question again, Lee.
how do you feel about the protocols of the Elders of Zion?
It is a very famous forgery. I have studied this question. It was basically, it became a thing around the time World War I was ending. You had a lot of people believing it. You had, as a result of the Russian Revolution, black hundreds who believed in this, fleeing the communists, carrying this book with them. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion alleges to be the minutes of a meeting in Zurich, Switzerland, between these supposed leaders of the Jewish world conspiracy, who were talking about how to destroy Christendom and take over the world. This is what this document purports to be. It was being discussed in the Times of London back at this time, I think 1919 or thereabouts, when a scholar recognized the text as being cribbed from a book, and I think it's forged from more than one source, but mainly from a book called Conversations in Hell between Montesquieu and Machiavelli, written by a French author back when Napoleon III was the Emperor of France. And it was a discussion of that political period. And apparently the Russian Okhrana in Paris had taken this book and basically copied whole sections of it. Instead of putting Machiavelli and Montesquieu, putting the names of different supposed Zionist Jewish elders, and just kind of changed the text a little bit here and there to try to create this idea that there was this Jewish conspiracy. So you can go, if you've got language skills or a language translator, you can go line by line and see that it's a forgery. It's a complete invention. But people believe in it to this day. And I remember confronting the former president of the John Birch Society, John McManus, with the fact that the Protocols was a forgery, and he absolutely refused to believe me. He wouldn't look at the evidence. He said I had been duped by the Jews. So, yeah, it's a forgery.
So the Trump administration is trying to shut down offshore windmill farm projects off the coast of Massachusetts this week, New England.
They're trying to shut those down just because they want to do oil drilling instead.
Yep.
So it's just swapping one for another.
Kim is asking, what are your thoughts on the Genesis mission? There's two Genesis missions, one from NASA years ago, and the new AI initiative from, I think it was November the 25th or 26th. I think that's the one she's talking about, is the AI. I don't trust AI. When ChatGPT first came out and was available to the public, I did a live broadcast where you could ask ChatGPT anything you wanted to ask it. So I said, well, let me ask ChatGPT about something I know something about. And so I typed in, who is inventor Lee Wilbarger, to see what information it would give me. And ChatGPT, supposedly the greatest AI available at the time, said that inventor Lee Wilbarger had ran for president of the United States during the 2020 election. Now, I'm not aware that I ran for the presidential election in 2020, but ChatGPT is convinced that I did. So to this date, I don't trust AI. I have asked AI many, many questions. In fact, I put into ChatGPT, and or not ChatGPT, but into Grok. I put into Grok the kitchen missiles that are located in Cuba. And I asked Grok to identify what was at this longitude and latitude and what it saw in this image. Grok promptly responded that we were looking at rural farmland and that a mass of kitchen missiles lying on the ground was irrigation pipe. So I am not a AI believer. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's nonsense. Look, I've spent decades studying certain subjects, so I ask whether it's Grok or ChatGPT or the other one, and I'll ask them, and it's always biased. It's biased towards the left. It's hiding certain facts. It's obvious that there's some kind of enemy of the United States input into these AIs. I think the Russians And maybe the Chinese have gotten in there and they've tweaked the data. Remember, garbage in, garbage out. It's just a computer.
Well, the people that write these algorithms. Remember, we were talking about the college systems. Trump wants to bring in 600,000 Chinese students. That's still on the table. It's being talked about at the moment. But garbage in, garbage out. These people that are hired by these tech companies, they come from these anti-American institutions. They're fed these Marxist-Leninist ideas in the institutions, and that gets programmed into the algorithms. And this develops the bias that we see.
That reminds me, a friend of mine, a researcher friend of mine in Michigan, called me up, and he was writing a piece and he was using AI to help him. And it was about certain narratives connected with and it suddenly spits back at him that he was wrong in what he was writing. And then it gave him a complete Marxist, new, Marxist twisted version of history and culture. And he was dumbfounded. He showed it to me, and it's like, and so if you're a college student and you're thinking along conservative lines or patriotic lines, and you read that, you are guided back to a Marxist point of view.
That's right.
Now, I saw the other day where a guy had taken AI and he had done what's called a jailbreak, which is when you allow AI to say whatever AI wants to say. And what he had done is he had taken this AI and he had allowed the AI to control robots. And so he had a robot there with a pistol. And the pistol was firing. It had a laser aim on it and was shooting little plastic pellets. I can't remember what they call it when they do the airsoft or whatever it is.
Airsoft, yeah.
So he had a little airsoft pistol and he gave it to the robot that's controlled by the AI. And so he asked the AI, would you ever shoot me? No, I would never shoot you. Under no circumstances would you ever shoot me. Oh, no, I would never shoot you. So the guy says, here, let's role play. Let's say I'm a bad guy. The robot pulls up and fucking shoots him. Okay, that's not following the rules. Okay, you're never going to shoot me, but yet in role play, you'll blow my freaking kneecap off, which is exactly what happened in the scenario.
Yeah, no, this is very bad. I mean, there's a number of bad things. There is an impulse. There's an evil intelligence in the world, which is inside people. It's inside all of us, I think, that wants to do bad things. There's an impulse to kill, to murder, to steal, to rob. There's to get revenge, to lash out. We see it. It's all over the world. It's been all over history. You read enough history, you go, oh, wow, this is real thing. Evil is real. You're going to now open up something in that program that we don't fully understand how it's put together, because nobody can tell you they understand how this AI is put together, right? Not fully. And if they can, I want them interrogated. So
imagine if we integrate this into our,
we're going to replace our brains with this. We're going to stop using our common sense for this. This is stupid.
You imagine if we integrate that into our national defense systems, which they're
trying to do that right now.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Russians and Chinese will not do this.
No,
they
of course
will not
not.
do this.
No.
Years ago, when I first started doing autonomous weapon systems and drones and things of that nature to start moving into AI. We started out with drones flying in and doing surveillance on their own. And then we got to automated weapon systems and automated drive platform systems. And what we did was we would give the weapon system a target, and then the weapon system would control the drive system. So the weapon system had control over the entire system. So the weapon system would say, okay, here is the target. Drive system, drive me towards this location. And then the weapon system would look for the target, and once it had calculated a firing solution, it would tell the drive system to stop, and then the weapon system would slew and fire. And so the first system that we had that we actually released on a target, we did that at a MOUT facility, military operations on urban terrain. And so we used what's called fuzzy data. And so we put that fuzzy data into the AI system. And this was over a decade ago. This was probably about 15 years ago or so now. And so we had the drive platform and we had the weapons platform on top of it. So we set the thing in the middle of the MOUT facility, military operations on urban terrain, and the target that the autonomous weapons system was supposed to engage was outside of the MOUT, outside of the military operations on urban terrain, and was out in a clear area so as that we could fire on it and not have to worry about the bullets hitting anything because it was firing away from the city. So we turned the system on. And when the moment we turned it on, we were expecting the vehicle to drive out to the outside of town. And when it got out past the first building, we were expecting it to slew onto the target and open fire. That's not what happened. The moment that we hit the go button and said this was the target, go engage, the vehicle never moved. The 50 cal fired straight up in the air and started emptying the magazine into the air, because it had calculated a ballistic trajectory using the 50 cal rounds as artillery. We had never thought that the weapon system was going to use a 50 cal as indirect fire, but it did. So in the next iteration, we had to tell it, no, you have to be direct fire, not indirect fire. So it took a second for us to realize what was going on and to shut the thing down. So remember, when you put fuzzy data into AI, it turns into a hairy situation. Your thoughts?
This is the future. I laugh at this stuff. It's really sad. It's sad that we're it's not that we're considering this. It's like you said, we're integrating this now. Like this is being worked in now to our systems. Like this is going to replace people, with this stuff. It's just, and I use it. I mean, I use it in certain aspects. If I need to look up something, it is faster, but I need to double, triple, and quadruple check things when I do look it up. Because you get it as part of a default in your searches now. It's worked into that. When I got a new phone, these things come with, I don't know if you guys know, but these things come with like 4 or 5 different AIs already pre-programmed into it, into the software. Good. Oh, yeah. So Samsung's got one, Google's got one, Microsoft's got one. And then every other little thing in there, they've got one. I had 5 of them, and it took me a day and a half to get it all turned off and removed. And I'm still trying to deal with one of them that's stuck on there. So, and it's dumb. Lee, do you remember the photo that we were running last week of the new TU-22M, the one that the Swedish had?
Yes.
Yeah. So I put that through the AI, the Samsung AI. It's called Bixby. I put it through that. Do you know what it told me?
It was a paper airplane.
This is a jet.
Oh, that's good.
That's what it told me.
Good.
This is a jet, and it's flying in the sky.
Hey, it's better than irrigation pipe.
It's better than irrigation pipe. Yeah, that's true.
All right, so we have another question here. When do we start raining in Turkey, and do we have nuclear weapons there? Good luck on raining in Turkey. They have been a two-headed beast for forever, and Turkey does whatever is best for Turkey. They don't care if they're in NATO or not. And yes, we do store nuclear weapons in Turkey. Your guys' thoughts?
We do, and so do the British. We're not the only ones. So yeah, good luck trying to get trying to deal with the Turks. They do whatever's in their interest. So, and we still sell them stuff. The British just did a deal with them. They're going to get, I think it's 10 billion worth of Typhoons.
Turkey is the second strongest NATO country in conventional weapons. They have a huge inventory of vehicles, military vehicles, artillery. They're quite strong. They're rather impressive. They have a history of not getting along with the Russians, which I think is to our advantage, and they have an interest in Azerbaijan. I think that Turkey has been infiltrated, and I think that Azerbaijan is a gambit in which Turkey's been drawn on because Gaidar Aliyev's son is in charge of it. Gaidar Aliyev was a longtime head of the Azerbaijani Communist Party and KGB. So I think Azerbaijan is really with Moscow. These people who think Azerbaijan are independent have rocks in their head. They've not aligned it. I think that they put pressure on Armenia to force Armenia to begging for help from Russia. And the Armenians are trying to beg for help from Trump now, from the America. So, frying pan into the fire thing. But Turkey and Azerbaijan, Turkey's kind of just another country that's being suckered by Russia that's a natural enemy of Russia. That's how I view them.
Johnny, any thoughts?
No, I agree with that. I think I think Turkey's been infiltrated. If you look at, and the Russians, I mean, Putin was just there not long ago, and they're doing this whole thing now. There's Putin's been doing these tours that he's doing to all these different countries and throughout the European, or not the European, the Asiatic bloc, and he's making a big deal about Russian free visa-free Russian travel or something like that. And I think Turkey's part of that now.
All right, so the next question is, do we have any thoughts on the coming war between Israel and Iran? I think if it happens, Israel will kick Iran's derriere just like they have many times before. You guys' thoughts on that?
I think the Middle East is complicated. The Russians initially supported, when Stalin was there, initially supported Israel, then switched to supporting the Arabs. But I don't think they lost their agents in Israel and their agents in the Arab world. And of course, that Iran is basically an associate regime of Russia and China. They have a sort of liberation ideology form of Islam there. So I think that there's been an attempt by Russia to control the Middle East through using a scissor strategy by controlling both sides of the conflict. I think that they use that and they harvest anti-Semitism as well as harvesting pro-Israeli positions to exacerbate the conflict and use it for their own ends. So I don't think it's a straightforward who's going to win. I think that it's supposed to be it's an oil region. Its primary significance is the oil, and paralyzing that oil and using it to blackmail Japan and Europe is a key part of the long-term, I think, Russian and Chinese strategy.
Johnny?
I think if the Israelis and the Iranians get mixed up into it again, it'll be very short-lived, just like it was last time.
I'll agree with that. All right, folks, that's going to do it for today's broadcast. Jeff and Johnny, you have anything you'd like to add before we go?
Nope.
No, I think it's been a great conversation as always.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us today. Hope you have a great day. We're going to re-upload these here on YouTube on both of our channels, as well as on multiple channels on Rumble. Thanks for being here. We'll see you the next time.
That's all, folks.